PopCultureZone.com is your go-to online comic shop focusing on hot new comics and incentive variants, CGC graded keys, and tons of other pop culture inventory, including toys, statues, and other collectibles, all available at competitive prices. Don't miss out on taking advantage of their spend $25 for bargain deals option. How does this work? Simply add $25 of product to your cart and receive special deals and discounted prices on countless other inventory. Pop Culture Zone ships all over the US, and for anyone buying raw comics, they offer the flat rate shipping charge of only $5. Taxes are also excluded from all purchases, excluding New Jersey residents. Make sure to check out their website link below and also the link to their eBay store, where they have held a 100% positive feedback score from thousands of reviews, so be sure to follow them there as well. And also, if you are in need of top tier pressing at extremely affordable prices, make sure you check out their link for pressing services.
All right, so let's get into question 3. Now, you buy some collections, right?
Yep. It's been over I bought my first little collection a little over a year ago now, but I just recently started selling online about 7 months ago.
Okay, so the reason I asked that question is I think a lot of people, even like myself, who left the hobby and now I'm back in it. And, I got back in it because my kids were getting older and they didn't want to talk to me anymore. It was no longer cool. I needed something to do. And so I got back into comic books. And then it spawned this YouTube thing, which has turned into, and it has been bred into me from my uncle that you fund your hobby by selling stuff. That's what he did. And I was raised around that. So for somebody like me who is considering buying collections, are there any tips that you could give, like things that you've learned in the short period of time that you've been doing it, that might help somebody like me that's interested in maybe getting into it?
It's funny because this has been a hot topic on my channel lately. I did a live stream recently. I did a couple videos. A lot of people, I don't like the term, but I'll use it just for context, gatekeepers. I think that term is a bit derogatory, but I mean, we have a lot of people that sit on high moral grounds. Some call it a pedestal. And I think people mean well when they do this in this hobby, but sometimes it really alienates. And going back to what I said earlier about this hobby's for everyone, and so many different people collect in so many different ways. And one thing that I think people kind of don't understand and they get defensive against is the fact that when you are out buying collections in bulk, it's a different beast. And people that are trying to sell in bulk are going to have to understand that you're not going to sell comics at fair market value for the most part, and I think that's one thing, no matter why you're buying collections. But I think if you are buying collections as the buyer, you need to understand that if you are, whether you're buying to have the hobby fund itself, or you just want to be a dealer or a reseller, you got to understand the time and work that goes into it, and the fact that it's harder than people think to actually make money off of comic books, especially if you're buying in large bulk. So to answer this question, I look at it in 2 ways. And I've done both. I have bought collections thinking that, oh, maybe I could sell some of this, but there's so much that I don't have that I'm going to keep. Right. So that way you're not looking at it as a way to maximize return. You're not looking at it as you're not looking at it as like you're running a brick and mortar business. Like, say you're a restaurant and you need to buy eggs and meat and napkins and cup supplies. And you're like, oh, well, I'm just going to buy, 100 eggs and I'll just give half of them away to my cousin because he's in town and I don't care, whatever. It's like, I need to buy what I know I could sell because I need to make a profit, because I need to pay my employees, I need to pay rent, and then I need to pay myself.
Right.
So if you're looking at simply buying a collection because you're going to keep some stuff for yourself, but you want to make some money back, maybe you want to break even, or maybe just make a little money back in your pocket to where you feel like you got a good deal on the stuff that you're keeping, you could go into a conversation with the sellers to be able to work out a a fair deal. I mean, any deal when buying comics should be fair to both parties, right? But you have more wiggle room to not shoot yourself in the foot. And let me give you an example. The first collection that I ever bought, which is a little over a year ago, was a collection of about 150 comics, and a little more than that. I paid a little over $300. I ended up paying about $2 a book. And I went into it blind just from looking at some pictures because it was far away. And I actually had my mom pick it up and pay for it. And I had to go pick it up from her. And I thought I was getting a Star Wars #1 because there was a Star Wars #1 in there, but there was books on top of it and the barcode wasn't shown. And it ended up being a Whitman reprint, which is still cool to have.
Sure.
But, so there wasn't as much in there that I thought I would get, but there was a Batman 423, the iconic, McFarlane cover art that's been cover swapped so many times. There was like the complete Punisher Volume 1 miniseries 1 through 4. There were some other Star Wars books that I needed, and there was some decent stuff. Like there was a couple autograph books, like not huge autographs, but I think I sold one for $50. I basically made my money back on that. But when looking at it, and I kept some good books that, I mean, Batman 423 is a book that's continued. I mean, I just recently had it on a possible blue chip keys of the future list. That's how much I believe in Todd McFarlane. But if I look back at it, where I'm at now, running a business, really, there was no way I would have offered $200 for that collection. Because while as a collector, I broke even and now I have some cool books in my collection. If I was simply buying that collection to sell, to basically fund my business, I would have been in the red by a mile. So the other way to look at it, tips to buying collections, is you really got to look at like what you just said. You specifically said, I want the hobby to pay for it myself. Therefore, put it in perspective. Put it into the perspective like the example I just gave. But if you're looking at it from specifically a dealer's point of view, I talked about how, if you're really looking at anything, even down into Bronze Age stuff, but 80s to 90s and up, fair market value in terms of bulk buys from any dealer, from any LCS, you're gonna get hit with 10 to 20 cents a piece.
Right.
What I like to do though, and how I like to be fair, is if I know that there's a certain amount of keys, here's another example. I recently picked up about a 400 book collection. It had a first appearance of Morbius. It had ASM 100, which is the anniversary classic issue. It had first appearance of Taskmaster, second appearance of Hobgoblin, a lot of good Spider-Man stuff. I basically said, you got about 20 books here. I'll give you $400 for these 20 books. So it was a bit under what I felt like I could sell them for, so I can know that I could still make a little bit of money. And then I said, I'll give you $1 per book for everything else. And they said, good deal. Let's do it. So I paid $800 for a 400 book collection. You can look at it like I broke it down, or you can say I paid $2 each a book. I still think I probably overpaid on the $1 a book. I probably could have offered 50 cents a book. But again, I think doing that is a fair way of acknowledging the fact that they have something of value. You're being a fair reseller, dealer. You're not just slime balling them. And you got to be smart about being able to make money still, because you don't just want to be a good guy. I can't lowball them because I want to be a good person. Then, hey, look, if you end up eating costs and you can't pay the bills, that you're out of business. You're out of putting food on your kids' table. You're out of being able to pay the bills. So there's definitely a fine line. You got to be a businessman on that end. So those are the two kind of ways I think of looking at it, that you really have to put it in context for each situation and how you want to go into these situations buying.
I like that. I mean, for me, it's probably similar to the way you look at it. For me, is I've bought a few collections before, just people locally that knew I was into the hobby. They wanted to get rid of some stuff. And I've, there was a couple I picked up that actually had some pretty decent books in them. And what I gave for them, what I gave for the whole thing, I was like, all right. And I went back and kicked them some money, you know, after. I was like, hey, you know, these books were in here. These were worth more. You know, I didn't think these were in here. Here's some extra money. And they appreciated that. They had never said a word if I'd have never showed up. I just thought it was the right thing to do. But more for me, it's about buying things to maybe put into my collection, and then being able to sell some stuff to where I either get the books for free that I kept, or maybe I make a little something, but it's just for my time. But I like how you broke that down into, you know, if you're a dealer, it's a completely different mindset than it is if you're a collector that's just looking to move some books, fund the hobby for yourself. So I think that's cool.
Yeah.